The last news desk on the left, now with fewer calories. Sorry.
Wait, were there supposed to be calories before? Should I have been recording this?
No. I am your host, Mac Paladin. And of course, the usual crew of suspects and misanthropes are here. Adam.
Yugos.
Kevin's in the house.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Petty fans dusting off the technology.
Yay!
We got the Golics over here building Gundam models.
Unfortunately, not actually. It's too dark.
And for the moment, Twilight Winter is still with us.
Indeed, I am.
Alright, so we got a lot to talk about today, so let's everybody give your weekly introductions and let's get this rolling.
I mean, I think we already gave the weekly introductions.
Well, I mean, the thing is that this is a different channel than Fragments, so those don't count. So, and Kevin wasn't here.
I know, but but it's more we never do the elaborate goings on here. I notice probably because there's so much to talk about in a given week.
All right, well, why don't you launch us into histrionics, Adam?
Well, I'm like.
Right, actually, hold on. Before we start that, I should note that you may notice a new feature on the overlay there that we are now displaying the fragments of Silicon status because this is an affiliated show. So up at the top, we have our Discord server where people can offer commentary. So if you click on that, you should be able to find our server. And you'll now know who is talking because I have the overlay in place that shows our names and faces when they light up. Well, our virtual faces, anyway.
I don't know, sounds fake.
Fake news. But we'll get to that in a minute. Adam?
Yeah, anyway, so per the titling of this episode, we got to go down to Mississippi because, you know...
We have to?
We have to because,
Yeah.
It is inevitable.
Because on Monday, the Supreme Court of the United States has decided to hear the 16-week ban abortion case that Mississippi threw out there.
Bye-bye, Roe v. Wade.
Well, keep in mind, there are quite a few of these of various sorts. So and the conservative movement knows this, so it's been throwing these out. You know,
and the methodology on this one is a little bit weird, so there's room for there to be a kind of like, there's certainly wiggle room on there being a firm thing. The new tack on this law is that instead of making it illegal in a federally enforceable way, they're making it illegal in a way where it's basically other customers' or other people's responsibility to sue people who provide abortions.
I think that might be the Texas one.
Oh, that's the other one? Sorry.
Yeah. Like,
I had them mixed up.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah. So the Supreme Court is going to be hearing this next term. Probably in the fall to spring in terms of actual arguments, in terms of an actual decision. Well, okay, here's how the Supreme Court generally works on that. The most controversial and high-profile cases usually get ruled on last. So I would expect a ruling in June of 2022, which will make for some interesting timing. Now, the outcome isn't entirely predictable because, the John Roberts court likes to go really narrow and punt on things, I've noticed. So it's not necessarily a slam dunk that they're going to, cut Roe v. Wade in twain or whatever, but we'll see what transpires there because the
question they're going to debate here with this case is the constitutionality of I forgot what the term was, but basically first trimester abortions, essentially. Although there's a certain term for it, I forgot what the actual term is. But basically, the case that was here is about a 15-week abortion ban, and apparently this is going to be about all those bans of this type period, basically to try to, pretty much wrap this situation up. And I don't have high hopes.
I'm like, well, all that can be done right now is to watch it play out. But I'm like,
if you basically right now, if you live in a state that is controlled by Republicans, you better get ready for the possibility that abortion will be illegal within a year.
Well, it's like Republicans better get used to the possibility, the very high probability that they are going to get absolutely fucking swept out of office. Like,
well,
depends on the state.
Depends on the state. That's right.
maybe so, but this is a 70% issue. I'm like, I saw what happened when they actually fucked with healthcare. They will reap a price. I will guarantee you.
I don't know. Abortion is an issue that could probably surprise you in the bedfellows here.
Maybe, but that's ignoring where the public polls are. These motherfuckers are in. These motherfuckers are in a minority, like clear and simple.
Actually,
I'm not hearing any of this. I'm sorry. It's like
the pro-life. There's the percentage of this country that considers themselves pro-life is not that far off from the percentage of this country that is pro-choice. Now we'll see what happens, but if it's sold in a certain way, it might not be as bad. But I hope it's bad. Not to say that I hope it's. But I'm just telling you that there's probably a lot more people that like to consider themselves pro-life than we like to believe.
I don't buy into that.
Okay. I mean, I hope you're right. I mean, I'm not saying this just because I'm of that mindset. Believe me on that front. But it's just that I also see for a fact that it's 45% that consider themselves pro-life, and you can spin this that banning all abortions means you ban the worst abortions. I mean, maybe the stupid people in this country will buy that.
No, I'm like.
I mean, I hope that's not the case, and I hope people see this and go and absolutely rebel against this. But the fact of the matter is that these anti-abortion politicians keep doing this, and they keep getting elected. So, I mean,
I'm like, look, I'm aware of what goes on, but it's also
one of the things we need to keep in mind here is that a lot of this is going to hinge on whether or not they are successful in the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act and whether or not they actually kill the filibuster, because this is now on the floor.
Yep.
So if they kill the legislative filibuster and then they reauthorize closing the loophole that caused the 2013 decision that fucked the Voting Rights Act in the first place, okay, then it's going to change a number of things, because then the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution will be in effect and federal law will prevail. In which case, then they can use that as a sort of watershed decision in order to start applying these standards, overriding a lot of these state rules and regulations. And that will create a different kind of battlefield, because then the state legislatures will be taken out of these kinds of decisions. If they pass a sufficiently ironclad federal law that passes constitutional muster, notice the asterisks.
Oh shit!
Notice the repeated asterisks that I put in there.
Yeah.
Then we'll have a slightly different conversation about the whole thing. But you notice there's a lot of hinges there that we have to worry about.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a whole lot of ifs in there.
Right, but like I said, that's the direction we're starting to head. And if that's the case, then, like I said, that changes the whole landscape of the conversation. Proceed.
I would not. I unfortunately would not bet the farm on that happening.
Well, I'm just saying that's the conditions under which the conversation would change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at the very least, it would redirect a lot of people's attention and ire.
Mm-hmm.
Proceed, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
we'll get back to that.
we've got we've got a year on that.
Yeah.
But in the more immediate concern of the Mississippi Supreme State Court, whatever they call it, they just killed a whole bunch. They killed a whole bunch of ballot initiatives simply because it's Republican dominated. They did not like, legalizing marijuana, early voting, and just
the Medicaid extension, or
like, yeah.
I believe if that's not one of them, then that would be one that would go down the line. But anyway, the state Supreme Court of Mississippi decided to go nope.
Yep, which is not unusual when a Republican-dominated state court comes across something that it doesn't like.
This was based on something about like signatures on ballots or something, or on ballot envelopes or something.
Yeah, I think that was the rationale. Like,
it's worth noting that they're not overturning any of the elections that they were happy with.
Well, no, this isn't about elections. This is about initiatives.
Yeah. Well, the rationale that was done in this case is that before, I think it was the year 2000, Mississippi had 5, I believe that's what this is, 5 congressional districts, and after the year 2000, they've had 4. What the Supreme Court said basically is threw out every single ballot initiative since 2000 because, well, it wasn't in 5 congressional districts, the number of signatures. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a twisted mindset, but hey, it goes with the pattern of, Republicans not liking voter initiatives because those voter initiatives actually support the liberal position instead of the conservative position.
Well, I mean, this is what happens when you vote Republicans. Like, yeah, but guess what, voters? If you want these things to actually happen, stop voting Republican. But you're not going to do that, so,
Nope.
Well, it's all about owning them libs.
Yep, you get what you vote for. Yep, and you get. I say you can get what you vote for. It's that you get who you vote for, and who you vote for are people who are absolutely opposed to what you vote for.
Yep.
I always think it's ironic because we talked about the referendum process here in Arizona, how propositions here actually amend the state constitution, and California is very similar. So there's no gubernatorial override, there's no or veto, there's no state legislature override of propositions and so on and so forth. And because it amends the state constitution, there's also no state Supreme Court challenges to these propositions.
Well, here's the funny thing. Up in Utah, I read about how the or one of these states. I heard about the fact that voters did a ballot initiative and it changed the constitution, but what the governor and the legislature did was just basically say, nope, we're not going to fund it. Just not going to do anything for it. Yeah, it's in the Constitution. It's it's law, but we're just not going to fund it. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So
as of yet, we haven't done that yet.
Again, this is a thing that has come up repeatedly over the last 5 years, where the ability of government to function depends on people in government being willing to follow the rules of government.
Well, the Arizona is weird because we suddenly decided that that medical marijuana was pro-business, and they also saw the windfall of tax revenue that came in, and were suddenly silent on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
They're much more worried right now. The state GOP is much more worried about voter suppression and making sure Mark Kelly doesn't get reelected so they can kill the filibuster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really what we're all about right now, apparently.
Like, speaking of state fuckery, Tennessee, they just passed a horrific anti-trans bill, where pro-trans establishments have to put up signs identifying that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like
They don't have to add "firebomb me, please," but it's like implied.
yep, and there are going to be actual trans people who die because of it.
Like,
Again,
well,
this
once
is
we,
what
well,
the people. I'll say this right now. This is what the people in Tennessee voted for.
well, it's like, okay, I will say that. Well, no, it's like this is the kind of thing that's going to be challenged and eventually defeated.
Yeah, but the problem is what happens in the interim.
That's
Right. That. Well, it's also.
That's not even a guarantee that this gets defeated in court.
Well, it's also enforcement. How much are they willing to invest in actually making sure that these fucking signs are up and all that stuff?
Well, you know, and this is it's like, you know, if we need any more invocations of Godwin's law and you know, Nazi practices, putting signs up in businesses identifying them as being a particular way is like textbook.
Oh yeah. So, you know,
I think,
like I said, you know, because this sounds like the kind of thing that you actually need a lot of manpower and a lot of effort to actually enforce. So, hopefully, it's as slipshod as I think it is.
well, we have all those monitoring stations under Lake Mead.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess over here in Florida, so the former guy here, he's apparently brokered a deal with DeSantis to open a casino at fucking Doral.
Wait, what?
I'm like,
former? Oh, you mean? Oh, okay. Wait, he's building
Yes.
another casino down? Oh, okay. I'm kind of surprised that he actually is still in the casino business at this point.
I know.
well, he's getting back into the casino business, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, but the thing is that was the source of a lot of his debt in the first place. So I don't know why anyone would loan him money.
Well, remember, this is from the mindset that debt is an asset.
Ooh, wait a minute. You know what? I totally forgot about something. He's really good at fleecing the public out of exactly as much as he owes.
Ah, yes.
Well, keep in mind, he's also got a very, very willing Republican audience to fleece. So,
Well, all
look,
he has to do is start an exploratory commission, and then he can take all the dark money he wants.
Look,
Yeah.
my point is, there's no shortage of suckers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
This is why they need to amend the RICO Act to involve presidential campaigns. Because if you want to talk about racketeering,
Yeah.
taking $450 million of voter money and then doing absolutely nothing with it except repaying your debts
You know, last
should
week
be
we were
a
talking
crime.
about the election.
You
Last
know,
week we were talking about the elections in the United Kingdom, and then you know what the nice thing about the elections in the United Kingdom is?
They're funded by the government.
No, they're fucking short.
Yeah, that's
yes.
It's fucking illegal to do any campaigning or anything like more than a month before the election. I think it's shorter than that.
Well, that and they actually enforce things like you can't do a stump speech at number 10.
Uh-huh.
And you can also, and you also can't do anything for, I think, like the day 48 hours before. I mean, like the media in Britain are basically silent about any election news until the time when they start doing coverage for 24 hours.
yeah, The British have a whole host of laws that would just never ever fly here for a whole host of reasons.
Fortunately.
It'd be nice if the elections would only last a month or whatever, but that's just not fucking happening. Like, it's just not. It's one of those. There are just certain things in this world that are just not going to happen, no matter how much you wish them to happen. Like,
well, and call it our country's Confederate mentality, but we're really good at documenting things, whereas they're not so much.
Yeah.
We want to document everything for posterity. Somebody learned that lesson from us. It wasn't a good thing.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, geez. The January 6th commission passed the House not too long ago.
It was 252, 175, 35 Republicans voted for it.
That's shocking.
Is about a quarter of the House GOP. So
it was a Daniel break. That's what it was.
So that's going to set up some interesting things in the Senate.
It's going to come down to, are there 10 Republicans? I could see.
Are there 9 Republicans, because Murkowski signed on to the letter?
Yeah.
Oh, true. So are there 9? If they're not 9, then this is dead, and this will be the first Republican filibuster of the Biden administration, which will be a lot of fun to talk about.
Well, I mean, it's kind of
this
win-win.
is kind of what happens when you let effectively some of the defendants decide whether or not to actually investigate a thing.
Well, that's the way it goes, unfortunately.
I have to wonder if the letter that Manchin and Murkowski signed, pleading for sanity, essentially, is the last litmus test for whether or not they flip on the filibuster.
Who can say? I'm like,
again, I don't want to. I want to put money on the
It's
farm.
speculation. I'm not actually putting that much faith in it. I'm just saying I wonder if that's the test.
Yeah.
In a normal world, it would be, but we're not in a normal world, so.
Well, yeah, we're in a parallel timeline right now.
Yes.
No, we are in a world where the Republicans just, on the whole, operate like, how do I say, like they are part of a communist party or junta or some sort of cult of personality, because they don't have any actual principles these days outside of supreme loyalty to dear leader.
Well, last week we talked.
No, they also believe that money is good.
Last week we talked briefly.
No.
Hold on.
Money is good until it's against them, and it's bad.
All right, hold on a second here. Last week we touched briefly on the concept of the 100, the people who were the Lincoln Project Republicans who were basically talking about splitting from the party. So the question is what is the tipping point for this so-called schism that may happen, and if so, what form will it take? Because that's really going to be the deciding factor in going forward into the immediate foreseeable future. If this schism takes place within the next 2 to 4 years, that's really going to be the deciding factor on the shape of legislative policy going forward, I think.
Yeah.
When and if it happens.
Well, it's like,
if it doesn't, then we have a very predictable outcome here. And if it does,
it's like, I think
then it's chaos.
it's like the answer is how far down the authoritarian ladder do these fuckers go? Because this is what I was talking about last week. Because the Republican Party could very well vote to overturn the election of 2024. And what then?
Yeah.
honestly, I think a lot of the Republican Party will do that, and it's like, here's the thing: you will either break off from that, or you will march in lockstep. There are no you. This is not the kind of thing that you can sit on the sidelines. As much as I loathe Liz Cheney, this is the shit. This is the shit she's been preaching about. You know, it's like, either believe in democracy or you believe in the whims of a dictator.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the thing: like, the most dangerous threat isn't even Trump. It's the people. It's the Republicans in power who are using his lies and his justifications to erode democracy.
Right.
I'm like, I wish there was things that we could do about them, but short of voting them out or whatever, there really isn't a remedy for this.
Yeah.
Short of, I don't know, like the Republicans move for another coup, and there's so many there's so many
I don't want to talk about right now.
Yeah, there's so many unfortunate hypotheticals that were perhaps once unthinkable, but we are just 6 months removed from a goddamn insurrection that the Republicans are trying to downplay, are trying to bury, are trying to run away from, because they know a member of their body are complicit.
A member.
A number.
Okay, a number.
Yes. Fucking Kevin McCarthy is fucking sweating bullets because he's got information that will harm Republicans, will harm Trump. Fucking Mitch McConnell did his predictable little dance and has come out against the bipartisan fucking commission to investigate the goddamn insurrection that almost killed a bunch of these fuckers. And what are they doing? They're bowing to the fucker who instigated it.
Yep. Because the fact of the matter is that he still controls the party.
Yeah. It's like, in a just world, these motherfuckers would be in chains for their fucking role in this.
Yep.
But no.
I hear guillotine kits are trending again on Amazon.
Yeah,
Well, it's like,
unfortunately, it's because of the fact that this country was built for these people.
yeah, it's
That's
like,
what I think. This country was built for these people.
no, I'm like,
It's the sad. It's
well,
the
here's
sad.
the thing. No, I'm going to correct you. It may not have been built for these people, and that should be very worrying. It's because either these motherfuckers fail or they're successful. And you know what happens if they're successful?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, look,
Answer the question.
we become South Africa what was it, 1991?
Something along those lines. Some sort of dictatorship. It's like that's the end road here. That's installing Trump as the fucking commissar. And I understand that Biden and the Dems have to play by bipartisan rules because that's what the voters expect and such. But if they fucking sink the January 6th commission, like, this is where I wish Dems would adopt some fucking Republican tactics. Because the smart thing, just let me finish.
Go
The smart thing would be to absolutely fucking hammer them for this. Fucking drill it into the ground that they are fucking traitors, that they don't fucking respect police, that they support sedition, that kind of thing, over and over again until it's fucking drilled into the voters' minds. But no, Dems don't know how to fucking do that kind of messaging.
Because we can't. Because
know.
every time we try to do it, we get hurt for it. Because unfortunately, despite the reason why Fox News exists, the media has a bias against Democrats. Always has, always will.
I'm aware of that.
But we can't do what Republicans do. We can't. We should, but we can't.
The biggest telltale on this is the amount of advertising on most platforms. The ads on Twitch, the ads on Facebook, ads on Paramount Plus, ads on
wherever,
anywhere. I'm just being barraged constantly with anti-democratic sentiment, and all of this goes unanswered. Mitch McConnell spends $400,000 of his own money to buy advertising, or his own campaign's money, or whatever, to buy advertising here in Arizona to vilify Mark Kelly, and there is no fucking response to these ads whatsoever, other than a in press releases.
Because here's why: the people who have a shitload of money are not Democrats, are not liberals. That's why. Yep. They're all Republicans. They're all conservatives. We can't at all compete with that. We can try, but we fail every single time. I mean, we should try to compete with that, but we can't compete with that. That's why Florida's probably locked out for Democrats for quite some time, because they control pretty much the airways in terms of commercials and other things. We can't compete with it because the people who have money don't want to be Democrats because we want to tax them. So unless we decide tomorrow that we're not going to raise taxes on the rich anymore, we're saying, when we go out there tomorrow and say that we are now a 100% anti-tax party, guess what? We're going to get overloaded on the airwaves. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to have to cut this conversation short because we've got some late-breaking news. Berserk author Kentaro Miura has passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for those who that doesn't mean too much, Berserk is an extremely long-running series that has had very slow updates for a long time, and if it's going to end now, it's not going to be by the original author.
Yep, it is. Yep, I was going to actually wait to note that until we got to the entertainment section, but yeah, Berserk officially is a last requiem because it's not going to be left unfinished.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Tezuka's The Phoenix. It was finished by someone else, or at least tied up as much as possible.
Well, we'll see what they decide to do.
Mm-hmm.
Manga's different than American comics because a lot of the stuff is pretty much done and the process of one person's idea. It's not characters that have been shopped around to a bunch of different people.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, Berserk is done because you got to remember what the main selling point of Berserk was. It's fucking really detailed artwork. You know, that is something you're just not gonna fucking replicate.
Nope.
You know, so I'm gonna say it right here. Berserk is done as its creator is.
Yep, done and dusted. It's over.
I've got further details here on Miura. Apparently, he passed away on May 6th due to acute dissecting aneurysm of the aorta.
Ooh.
Yeah, heart. I believe that's heart failure.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's a pretty
Yeah,
serious
hard.
one. That's
54. That's how old he was. 54.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to go. Yeah, he worked to death. He pretty much worked to death.
I'm not sure if that's an accurate thing to say, considering how much Berserk has been on hiatus, in the latter days.
That too. Yeah, that's something to consider. He probably had health problems for a while, and it finally caught up.
well,
Yeah,
That tends to happen when you have somebody who's got has health conditions and such for such a long time. I mean,
that being said, a lot of mangaka have died because of overwork related maladies. Let's say,
well, aortic aneurysm is usually caused not so much by overwork or stress as it is by an actual physical defect.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a genetic condition.
It's possibly something that went undiagnosed. I mean, it's like the simple fact that, I'll as far as this goes, in Japan, as in the U.S., undiagnosed medical problems is fairly commonplace because of similar resistance to checking people's health. You know? It's like,
so
anyway.
But yeah, we have a giant is gone, and this is why when you see a series go into hiatus for a long extended period of time, you might want to worry.
Indeed.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. If you're a fan of Hunter x Hunter, you better watch out.
It's not helped that Hunter x Hunter is in its biggest arc with its biggest cast yet.
Yeah, and it's not going anywhere. And when you have a situation, when you see this situation, it's like, wait, Hunter x Hunter has been on many different long hiatuses just as much as Berserk has, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, that being said, Tokusei's health has actually been like a degenerative thing.
Like, it really makes you worry. But anyway, rest in peace, Miura-san.
Right. So, I guess shifting from that unfortunate piece of news to more proper entertainment things, because probably
What do you? Should we go for the big one first here?
Well, yeah, it's like obviously the biggest news is AT&T is tapping out. It's like of the entertainment field, because they
finally realized that a phone company cannot be a media company. Surprise!
I don't necessarily agree with that, because fucking Comcast is really good at it. It's just AT&T is a...
Comcast is a phone company. They're a cable company. They could be a media company. They were a media company before they bought NBC.
Well, more to the point, AT&T is really fucking badly managed. I think that needs to be recognized. Because, well, keep in mind, it's not just the fucking Warner Media that they mismanaged. DirecTV. That wasn't an entertainment asset, and they fucking ran that to the ground.
I think it's important to note that the guy who made this deal happen on the AT&T side, he got changed shortly after the deal was closed. So basically, from the start, you already had a change of leadership from the leadership that, wanted to make this thing happen. Of course, was delayed by a year or so. because of a certain somebody's hatred for CNN. But
Right.
it started
But-
things. The thing started out with the fact that the CEO of AT&T, who made this deal possible, was booted out. Now, of course, even though that happened, the same mindset that overwhelmed this deal, it was very simple. The media company would help the phone company. The media would sell the phones. That's what this deal was supposed to be. But it turns out that's not how this went. Because that's not how
not just the phones, but they are an ISP, and they are a telecom company. And it's like I said, everyone tries to point out that they were trying to be Disney. No, once again, I would point that they were trying to be Comcast. They wanted to be,
They wanted to be Disney here.
Well,
I mean,
the better comparison. Let me finish. The better comparison is Comcast, because they are a vertically integrated telecom and media company. Disney is not that. Disney doesn't have any ISPs or phones or anything, any pipelines like that. The closest thing they have is a network, ABC.
yeah.
So that's why I don't think the Disney comparison quite applies compared to Comcast, because that is a much closer thing to what AT&T was.
Yeah. But again, AT&T is more of a phone mindset. But I mean,
honestly,
internet safely. But
no, honestly, though, if there's a conglomerate that AT&T Time Warner reminded me of, it is Vivendi Universal. Now, people might not remember Vivendi Universal because they didn't last that long, and they were based in France.
Vivendi, the Vivendi part of Vivendi Universal, yes.
Yes. But like in the early 2000s, they purchased Universal. Like they purchased I want to say Seagram, and they own Universal at the time.
Yes.
And the thing that happened there is they really, they overpaid for Universal via debt load. And the debt load was so bad that Vivendi had to get rid of the Universal part in a very big hurry. And in order to do that, they had to find another media partner. Enter NBC, and at the time GE. And this is how we got NBC Universal. And it's playing out just about the same, right down to the ending, because this is ending in a new media venture. Granted, AT&T shareholders will have like 70% of the new company right now, but make no mistake, this is Discovery Networks taking over Warner Brothers. Literally,
it's Discovery's guy who is going to be running the show here.
Yeah.
David Savion. Yes. Yeah. He's the guy running the show, not whomever AT&T is going to have, because the guy who is currently running Warner Media, well, let's just say he's not a fan. He's looking to get out the door, while at the same time trying to say business as usual around here.
Well, yeah, he's trying to save face, but there's no saving face here, because look, this deal is being measured in fucking dollar amounts. It's less. It's about half of what they paid. It's like just on simple return on investment, you failed.
Yeah. Look, what this deal was supposed to be. It was supposed to be very simple. The concept of this was very simple. AT&T bought into a media company so that the media company could help the AT&T company. So what happened was that this deal had a load of debt attached to it, and they spent a whole lot of time trying to fire and cost cut their way out of that debt. And it turns out when you do that, you pick out some very highly talented people. And when you do that, that doesn't help.
There are also other factors here. There is the fact that AT&T is currently engaged in building a 5G network.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why they're kind of shorthanded in terms of funding. And another big reason in terms of the shareholder is the dividends. So if you don't know, AT&T is legendary for its payouts to its stockholders. And apparently, I don't know, last quarter or whatever, they missed that. And yeah, not surprising that all these factors just came together, and very quickly AT&T is getting rid of its media assets.
Yep.
And
It turns out,
this,
when the phone AT&T has a big initiative here, and the media company turns out to be a distraction, you want to get rid of the distraction.
yep, this is called offloading your non-core assets.
Yep.
Like,
And the fact that Warner Media has become a non-core asset for them makes the deal a huge bust.
yeah,
Because
this is probably
non-core
Look,
asset.
yeah. This is probably going to go alongside the AOL Time Warner as one of the worst mergers ever to have happened.
Although I would dare to suggest that this is worse than that, because AOL came into the company. AOL came into the company at a relative creative floor. I mean, not creative, not AOL, but AT&T came into the company at a relative creative floor. When AOL came into the company, the assets were still riding high, or pretty well off and doing their own thing pretty well.
That were WCW. Look, I know people blame Jamie. I know people blame Jamie the Axeman Kellner for killing the television thing, but people like WCW lost $63 million in 2000. Like, what do you think was going to fucking happen during a merger?
Well, I would suggest to you that Kellner did actually kill it, but beside the point. But put WCW aside, the rest of the assets that company had at the time survived that period relatively fine, because you did not have firings left and right outside of Ted Turner getting the boot.
Oh yeah, and
The main
let's not forget, Turner doesn't really exist anymore.
Right.
Like, they dissolved the Turner organization and reshuffled things.
Yeah.
Like,
well, not AOL. Actually, AT&T did that, because Turner was.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, AT&T. AT&T did much more damage to this company. Not just from the deal itself, but from the fact that you had multiple changes in management over the course of the last 5 years. You've had multiple teams come in and explain their vision.
And let's be clear here: the damage is not done yet, because
you still have probably 1 to 2 more teams come in here.
Well, yeah, because we got a new merger basically, and and this is a very hurried merger, because, like, for example, Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, there's a big fucking black question mark over the video game units right now.
Yeah.
I've
read it's going to be split in half.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. There's apparently Warner Brothers might be cleaved. Some studios are staying with AT&T. Some are not. But nobody knows how this is working. Apparently, people who work at Warner Brothers don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, even studio heads don't know who they're working for right now. This is a fucking mess.
Yes, it is. And even after this mess is cleaned up, the new team will get.
Well, Warner Brothers Interactive has mainly avoided the perils of AT&T. I know they were trying to sell them off for a time, but that got missed. Now they're being it's your time, baby. You get to feel what the rest of your colleagues in your damn company has felt over the last couple of years. Well, yeah, and
that's how this works.
Well, it's like, and DC Comics, apparently this is going to be owned by the new entity, or Discovery and AT&T. These are the things I've been seeing. So, It's a fucking mess on some levels, but on other levels, just on other levels, this merger makes perfect sense. So let's get into the reason why Discovery. Why is Discovery wanting to merge with Warner Media? And it's quite simple. It comes down to specialties. Discovery Networks, they're well known for being the really, really good in unscripted ventures. Food Network, Discovery, TLC, HGTV.
It's TV specifically here.
Yeah.
So Discovery first with Discovery you have to realize that it's the Discovery Networks as a Discovery Channel, TLC, that sort of thing. And then there's the Scripps networks that they bought. Those are the big ones. Those are your HGTV, Food Network, Cooking Channel, etc.
Right.
That
point is
they are the kings. Therefore, with that Scripps buy, they are the undisputed kings of the unscripted lifestyle genre.
Right. And so you've got Warner Media, whose big talent is in scripted stuff. Do I really have to go down the list of what fucking Warner Media does?
Yeah, we got, first of all, there's the Warner Brothers studio itself.
Right.
And then you have half of the CW network. You have
TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network.
Right. What we're talking here is a deal that has a very high amount of concentration in the basic cable market here. Because you have TBS, TNT, the original, like the two big original basic cable networks combined. You also have Cartoon Network. You have CNN for the news. You have, you have Adult Swim as its own separate thing. You have all of this here, and you combine that with the unscripted side of Discovery. That's a pretty powerful market in every single facet of entertainment.
Yeah. That being said, the regulatory window is looking to be about a year. Apparently, this thing will be closing in 2022. And it's like, as far as actual antitrust concerns, maybe something in terms of the actual cable channels, but there's not a lot of overlap here.
It's not as bad as. Well, of course, there is a possibility that this is not the end of the story. I should also note that there is a distinct possibility. You talked about Comcast earlier? Guess what? There's a distinct possibility that they might put up a counter offer. And if there is a counter offer, and that counter offer is bigger than this one, well, let's just say that will be an antitrust nightmare.
Right, but that's a Comcast thing. That's a move that, until played, we're talking about time. We're talking about Warner Media and specifically Discovery. On its face, this merger.
But this specific deal is not an antitrust nightmare. It could be something that makes antitrust people, wring their collars, if you will, and sweat a little bit, but not, a major, oh my God, what the hell is this?
Well, it's some of the executives have talked about it, and they were asked if they thought that if this was going to be an antitrust nightmare, and they didn't think so, because if they thought that, they wouldn't go through with it.
Now, it's not as bad of a situation here because you don't have multiple broadcast networks involved. You don't have multiple studios involved. You don't have a big amount of concentration, right?
Like I said, outside of
when we talk about antitrust, just monopoly, it's concentration.
Yeah, outside of pocket concerns or something unforeseen, I don't really see antitrust stuff here because, once again, it's unscripted and scripted pairing, basically.
Right, and it's also not, Discovery is basically more of a linear TV kind of company. it doesn't have a film studio, for example. It doesn't have an over-the-air network. It doesn't have, it doesn't own affiliates of stations. It doesn't have, the collective kind of thing that would make antitrust people go berserk, right?
Well, yeah, it's also Discovery is not that big of a company.
Right, exactly.
Versus, so there's just a lot of here that says to me this is probably going to happen. How smooth it's going, but it's an easier thing than most. Now, it's just there are a ton of questions.
Right now, if there is a counter here with a bigger company that does have a movie studio, that does own a broadcast network, then we would be talking about an antitrust nightmare of epic proportions. But that's not the case we have here.
Yep.
Now, I would also point to you that this could also lead to more deals of this magnitude. Like, for example, if Viacom CBS were to put the for sale sign and a certain company out of Philadelphia that we've been talking about decides to jump on board.
Yeah, it's so I've heard. There's also been rumors of Amazon looking at MGM.
Yeah.
No.
But that would basically be. I don't know if that would be an antitrust situation more like than say NBC Universal buying Viacom CBS or doing a joint venture with them where you have two.
One media company cannot own two television networks.
Yeah, it's like I will
and
tell
dissolving
you right now,
dissolving an alphabet network is not that easy.
These deals will not just be two broadcast networks. These deals would probably be more likely two movie studios. Like
Well, like the segregation between Fox Television and Fox News and Fox Studios was a big bone of contention when Disney was attempting to acquire Fox Studios.
They basically cut off, and that's why they basically cut that off. Now you wouldn't have that situation here. That would be a whole mess of trouble. Like
because they already owned ABC, and that was the big sticking point, was that they could not own two terrestrial over air networks at the same time. It's a violation of hard and fast FCC regulations.
Not just two networks, but also the owned and operated stations of those networks. Because because these broadcast networks also own some of their own stations in the major markets like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, that sort of thing. So that's why that happens. It's not just the fact that they own two broadcast networks. It's also they own two broadcast networks plus a handful of flagship stations. So that's why when we're going back to the point here, Warner and Discovery, yes, Warner owns 50% of the CW, but they don't own a big broadcast network. They don't own everything else. And meanwhile, for Discovery, they're basically a cable-only company. And with this deal, they would be going into the film world with Warner Brothers.
It was very specific that they couldn't. It was very specific. It was very specific that they could not own one of the major terrestrial television networks. Basically, the ones that used to broadcast on UHF and VHF. Affiliates don't matter. Affiliates in that particular sense don't matter because the stations themselves could simply change branding. But NBC can't own CBS and CBS can't own ABC and any combination thereof.
Well, actually, the more pressing thing about that deal wasn't the networks; it was more the regional sports networks. That was the biggest thing about that because
Well, yeah, on the cable side, but that's because News Corporation wanted to hold on to those.
Yeah, but of course
because they're actually profitable.
The broadcast networks is not just the broadcast networks. I keep saying it's also the owned and operated stations, meaning the stations that are owned specifically by the network. Because when it comes to the affiliates that are not owned, that are owned by Gray Television or Nexstar or Sinclair or stuff like that. I mean, they could just simply change. They could just change brands and change whatever. But when we're talking about, ABC and Fox, ABC owns I think it's like 6, 7, 8 stations in major markets. Fox owns those certain level stations too. Those were the stations that the affiliates I'm talking about, because they're actually owned by the network. So
yeah, but the big deal with the FCC when the original merger between Disney and Fox was that they could not own ABC and Fox networks at the same time. So the Fox network had to stay part of News Corporation or become its own thing if Disney were to buy Fox Studios. So they could buy the intellectual property, but they couldn't actually buy the terrestrial broadcast rights, because under FCC regulations, a major company that owns one of the terrestrial broadcast stations, it's some arcane regulation that's been on the books for decades, but they can't, because it becomes a monopolistic problem because of the fact that they can't control 2 major alphabet networks, and Fox and ABC were considered major. This this is an expansion from the 90s that occurred, because NBC, CBS, and ABC were the only big ones, and then you had these independent UHF stations, which was the subject of a Weird Al movie. You had all these other minor independent stations that didn't matter. You could buy. Sinclair approved that when they bought up all of those. But they can't. But they can't own the. But they can't own the top tier.
Yeah. That would be specifically a duopoly. Although in many markets in America there already is a duopoly, so what really doesn't matter.
Right.
But
yeah, they felt that would somehow be too controlling over the distribution of information. And it would, because if you have the same corporate interests behind opposing networks like ABC and Fox, then that would be problematic. Although that gets murky with me with the repealing of the Fairness Doctrine.
Although the Fairness Doctrine, in fairness, isn't really the point of contention with this. It's more simply it's on ownership. So, but anyway, I think with that, I think we should wrap this up for the week.
Yep.
So of course, be sure to tune in tomorrow. I will be having my traditional Honkai Impact the 3rd playthrough. I don't foresee any reason that I will have to cancel it this week, but of course, the best laid plans of mice. Don't you mean the best laid plans of mice and men? No, just mice. But yeah, that'll be our last regular show of the week, and then of course Friday and Saturday we return to Facebook Games for more Overwatch shenanigans, and Sunday we have MS Saga to start a whole new week. And as I said on Up Late with Mace, we will be continuing the review of Funbag Fantasy 3 If, because it was a whole lot more than we expected. And I don't think we've actually gotten any gameplay yet, so it's just been on autopilot for 2 hours. I'd like to actually give it a chance.
I mean, it's a visual novel. Sometimes pushing the next button is gameplay.
If that's the case, then it's going to get a very negative review. Anyway,
Mac, do you want to know how many visual novels I've reviewed on Fragments of Silicon and had to resist giving them very negative reviews because pressing the next button is not much in the way of gameplay? It's not a small number.
Well, we've gone 2 hours into it and we have yet to reveal plot. So
there you go.
There is definitely that. I will try to give it a fair shake. I will give it another 2 hours before I condemn or praise it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we want to give it a fair shake because John Pickett is a cool guy, and MangaGamer.com is always a awesome guest, and we want to make sure that we afford them every opportunity to well, shall we say, do right by each other.
I mean, that's why I try to be positive about them too. It's just really hard because not my main thing.
Well, I mean, the reality of reviewing is that sometimes you got to be Siskel and sometimes you got to be Ebert and sometimes you got to be both. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. One was always typically more forgiving than the other, and in order to do things right, we can't just be a rubber stamp. Integrity, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for this week. So be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Last Newsdesk on the Left. On behalf of the crew here, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.
Take care of yourselves and each other.